All right, we are live. Welcome, everybody, to this great discussion that we're going to have today on global migration with Henley and Partners, featuring my buddy Shan, who is based in the United Arab Emirates. So, Shan, I'll let
Yes,
you
sir.
introduce yourself and talk about Henley and Partners, and then I'll remind people who I am.
Perfect. Perfect. Thanks, Rod. So, my name is, so it's unusual spelling, but pronounced like Sean. But you're not the first one to do that.
Shan
Um,
from Southern.
yeah, exactly. I'm used to it. So, as Sharad said, I'm based in Dubai in the UAE, but as my accent suggests, I'm originally from the US and actually from North Carolina, where I understand, Sharad, that's where you are right now. Um, but I'm with Henley and Partners. So Henley and Partners, we are the global leader in residence and citizenship by investment, which is an industry known more broadly as investment migration. Many people aren't familiar very intimately with investment migration, but essentially these residence and citizenship by investment programs are ways by which private investors, successful individuals, entrepreneurs, and their families can obtain legal residence and or citizenship by making an economic investment of a variety of sorts, depending on the country, into a given country, and receive those residence or citizenship benefits as a result. So why this is important, as we hear every day, the world is increasingly interconnected and dynamic and ever changing, sometimes for the better, sometimes not. And as a result, countries are kind of in competition with one another for the best talent, for capital, and these programs are designed as a way to attract that talent and capital from successful individuals. And for those investors, it's kind of a buyer's market in that respect. There are so many options to choose from, and so they come to us to for guidance on which of these programs or which combination of investment migration programs around the world might be best for their family, for their interests, if they are looking for safety, for education access for their children, for the ability to work in another market, or a combination of these things. Then we can guide them on how to be the most mobile, the most kind of most international, kind of be able to participate in that global economy. So we provide private client advisory. We work with governments on designing and implementing investment migration programs in new countries, and then we publish insights about the industry as well, the migration
Yeah.
trends of successful high net worth individuals. A few weeks ago, we released our we call the Henley Passport Index, which made often gets picked up in a lot of different outlets, and got some good coverage a couple weeks ago, ranking the strongest passports. So the passports that have the most diverse or the broadest travel free, or sorry, visa free travel access, which is one but not one of the big
So,
draws, but not the only one. Yeah,
question for you right there.
yeah.
Talking about the passport index, what would you say, like, kind of like in the top five right now as far as like the powerful passports in the world that have these migration investment programs?
Yeah, great question. So the global passport ranking right now, this was kind of the first time that it's been so tight at the top. So there were six countries that were tied for the strongest in terms of their visa-free travel access. So France, Germany, Italy, Japan, Singapore, and Spain. Citizens of those countries have 194 different uh, countries or jurisdictions around the world where they can travel visa free.
Hmm. Now, how far down the list is the United States right now?
It's funny. We are down at, I don't think we slipped any further. I think we stayed at seventh. Yeah, we're at seventh again now. It's funny. So for the US, we've fallen a couple of places over the past few years, but not necessarily because we don't have any fewer destinations where we can travel. It's just that some of these other countries have increased the number of countries where they can travel visa free. There's a number of reasons for that. I think
Yeah,
it's no secret that the U.S. is very strict when it comes to immigration policy. So
for sure.
there aren't as many new destinations, but we're not, it's not like you can't travel places where you used to be able to with the U.S. passport.
Right. And then just kind of like to educate people, I think another reason maybe it won't show up on the passport index is that, but in the United States, the investment migration pathway is through the EB-5 investment program. And that program is not as easy, I would say, as it used to be. Because one thing is you have to do the investment, which is probably at least around $1 million. There's different ways to get into it if you go through regional center stuff. But the part that people don't think about is that you have to have 10 American jobs at the end of the day per your investment, which is actually very difficult to do when you know that most startup businesses in the United States fail. And so while you can
Exactly.
do your investment, it's almost like, can you get your conditions removed 2 years down the line when they come and audit you for seeing if your investment did lead to those 10 American jobs. And I imagine
Right.
that there's other countries out there that once you make your investment, you're pretty much set, ready to go. And there's no like kind of like audit 2 years down the road, like, hey, how did that investment go and turn out into like jobs in our thing, which is it's hard. Like if you have 10 employees on $1 million investment, I don't know. It might take a lot more than that
Yeah,
to get,
absolutely.
yeah, right.
And,
And
and
so that's
that's,
why I like
yeah.
to focus on the talent-based immigration as
Hmm.
opposed to the investment-based myself, just because there is no job category or minimum investment for that matter.
Right. Right. Very, yeah, good point. And I should say, as one of the ways that we have tried to approach our EB5 strategy, because it's such a strict program, is we work with developers that have regional center approved projects that investors can enter under the EB5 program, and because they're part of a larger existing project that has been organized through a regional center and has all of the accreditation and all of the data to support job creation, um, it makes it a little bit easier for investors to make the qualifying either 800,000 or $1 million investment for EB5, and the project team in place that's running the commercial enterprise has already is responsible for handling the job creation and demonstrating the justification. So it's hard to find the right partners, and
Mhm.
that's one of the things we work really hard to do is to find projects that will meet all the criteria. Um, but I think for like to your point, investors who are looking to do it on their own, it's really difficult. It's not easy.
And that's where I got to give Henley and Partners kudos because there's a lot of agents that are out there in the world when it comes to EB-5 investment. But since Henley and Partners not only does migration investment here in the United States, but all around the world, I feel like for so many years, you guys have a unique vision to see if a project is going to work or not. And that value alone to say, like, hey, especially when you talk about EB-5 and maybe some of the other countries as well, where you have to have follow-ups on your investment, having the right partner that have seen it all around the world and maybe even help develop some of those programs just goes a long way, because if the project is not viable, it defeats the purpose of entire the entire investment, you know?
Absolutely. And that's a huge part of what we do globally. To your point, as I alluded to earlier, depending on the country, depending on the program, the type of investment that qualifies an individual for either citizenship or application or residence can be real estate, it can be an investment fund, it can be a diversified investment, shares of a publicly traded company, for example. And a lot of investors, they're like you said, there are a lot of subprime, suboptimal products out there that not only will result in could result in a loss for the investor, but they undermine the credibility of the program. If all of a sudden, people are coming in and investing in these kind of, for lack of a better word, like almost bogus projects, then they aren't happy. Even if they receive their residence permit a few years down the line, when they want to sell that asset, it's lost a lot of its value, and the program doesn't look good. The country isn't able to attract the right talent. So yeah, you're exactly right. That's a huge part of what we're able to offer.
Right. And is like a segue. Speaking of talent,
Yeah, of course.
One of the things that Henley and Partners is working on is working with athletes and other individuals that are high on the talent side, not just business people, but people that have some of the best skill sets in sports and entertainment in the world. And I definitely want to open the floor to talk about that new program and why it makes sense, and where are people trying to go? Where are the athletes trying to go? We're trying to go hang out with them. Where are they going?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's like you said, it's a new area of exploration for us. So we work with a huge range of different, individuals from a huge range of different industries. There's no one pathway to success, and so our clients are representative of that. But we did start, we started to get a few more inquiries from high-level athletes or their managers or their, families, kind of personal assistant, whatever the case may be, reaching out to us and asking about these services. So one example, so here in the UAE, there was a former or a West African soccer player who was competing previously in Europe. He was able to travel without any issue, in Europe while he was playing. His work permit was supported. His, residence status in the EU was totally taken care of. But then a couple of years later, he's retired. He's back in his home country, and that level of access that he had when he was still playing is no longer available to him.
Right.
So we had a few cases like that led us to think, okay, maybe there's more here. We haven't done a lot to proactively engage with the sports community, but there must be something more here. And the more we looked into it, the more we came to realize, as you know very well, there are specific visa pathways in many countries that are either designed specifically for athletes or that are very commonly utilized with athletes. So
right.
In the U.S., O-1, P1, all of your bread and butter.
Yeah.
And that in and of itself is a type of investment migration, but it's an investment in that athlete's human capital, of their abilities, of their talent. I think of and I was thinking about this podcast, and the quote that kept coming up was when LeBron in his press conference said he was taking his talents to South Beach, right? It's like,
I don't want
that's
to see.
No, I know you're a Cleveland guy, right? Sorry.
I was a block away from the queue when that happened. Yes. I was at RJ Boland's. I remember like it was yesterday. It got really quiet. And we were like, what did he say?
Yeah.
What did he say?
Sorry. I should have cleared that one with you before this. No,
fine.
but it's a cool, it's a type of domestic investment migration, but it's an athlete taking his capital and investing it in a new franchise. And I'm sure there's been studies about the GDP bump that Florida and Miami saw as a result of And that's the same concept for countries all around the world. They want to attract athletes to invest their human capital, their abilities in their economy, just the same as they want to bring in business investment.
Money, it's a good bill capital. And
exactly.
I guess for our audience that's not familiar with talent-based investment immigration, I'll just briefly go over it.
Yeah, of course.
So in the United States, for athletes, there's something called the P1 visa, which is the work visa you get when you're actually competing. Now, after they compete, and sometimes while they're competing, we get them the O-1 visa. The O-1 visa is for foreign nationals with extraordinary abilities. Now, it applies to athletes, but it can also apply to business people too. It can apply to pretty much any industry, as long as we can prove that you're at the top tier of that. So how we work with athletes is, for example, we do the visa work for Canelo Alvarez and Tyson Fury, who are both of the most talented boxers in the world, but they do a lot more than box. Like Tyson, like he might be wrestling. Canelo Alvarez might be opening restaurants. And the thing is, these O-1 visas do not have a minimum investment, but you can come in and invest as much as you want. Depending how it's structured, you can open up multiple businesses, and you don't have to stay in the United States for any amount of time. So if you get an EB-5 or permanent residence, there's a certain amount of time you have to stay in the United States to keep it. If you have the talent-based visa, you can come in a couple days a month, what you need to do, and you can actually avoid having the American taxation because you're not even in the United States to trigger that 180-day rule where you start having to pay American income tax. So in a lot of ways, if you're an athlete or a talent-based person, doing the O-1, if you don't want to actually live in the United States, you just want to have access to the market, can be a great segue to just kind of test the market, see how you like it, and then decide later if you want to do permanent residence. And then when you do want to do permanent residence, there is an immigrant, a green card version of the O-1 called the EB-1A, which also doesn't require any investment at all. And there's no requirement for you to create American jobs. It's basically, we take your O-1 arguments, bolster them up, and we apply for the I-45, which is the green card here in the United States, permanent residence. And it's very clean. And it's like, it gives you a lot of options, and the O-1 can be done very quickly. And I know there's other countries out there that have talent-based immigration that probably works the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. So Australia is one that comes to mind with me. They have kind of a similar setup as the US, where they have one, well, they had, it's currently not active, but we're expecting or hoping for some kind of a revamped version of it. But they have a business investor visa pathway for individuals who are, investors looking to obtain residence permits in Australia. And then they have what's called the Global Talent Independent Program, which is for, just like what you were saying with the O-1 and EB-1A, for individuals at the top of their, leaders in their field, exemplary individuals who are looking to enter Australia purely on the merits of their talent and expertise. So that's absolutely an example. Well, I think what we did, what we found though is for in many countries, absolutely, the talent-based visas, while they are competing, are hugely, hugely beneficial. But in certain countries, it's the window during which an individual can access those benefits is fairly small, and it's limited to the time that they're at the top of their game. The 5, 10 years, 15 if they're really lucky, where they're competing internationally and can benefit from that sponsorship. So that's kind of what got us thinking more is how can we, or is there a what is the value? What could be the other ways for athletes to diversify how they are investing in their own mobility, right? So one, just as an example, something that happened last summer while we were starting kind of the ideation process for this project was Harry Kane, the English footballer or captain of the English national soccer team. Exactly. He transferred from Tottenham Hotspur, one of the top teams in England, to Bayern Munich in Germany. It happened very quickly, and within, I think, something crazy like 72 hours, he was in Germany on the pitch competing in a match. So basically working for his new employer in a new part of the world, in a new country, where he had to go through all of the ins and outs of the immigration process, and did so in 72 hours. The resources at his disposal are hard to fathom that he was able to do that in such a short amount of time.
Yeah,
it's incredible. It's But even so, a few months later, he gave an interview after a match when they asked him, how's the transition going, and he said, the most difficult part is all the stuff off the pitch that he needed to figure out. He said, work permit, finding housing, finding schools for his kids. and this is someone who, again, has unbelievable resources at his disposal.
Right.
So it's, imagine then what it must be like for an athlete who's, more of a journeyman athlete, plays for a few team, a team for a couple seasons, then gets transferred to maybe a different league, or and maybe even in a different country. Just, a career athlete, not within, not elite, but still successful enough to have a long career. How does someone like that navigate the constant change?
Right.
And I think the answer for many athletes could be, and is already, but could be for even more, investment migration, putting investments in place while they are still competing that will grant them access to residence in Spain, residence in Greece, something that all the second citizenship from the Caribbean that gives them, widespread visa-free travel access to Europe, to the UK, to the British Commonwealth. There are some, steps that athletes can take so that if they, when the end of their career comes, whether it's on their own, on their own time, on their own terms, or, you know, unfortunately, if it's an injury that ends their career unexpectedly, they're not in a place where they need to immediately up and leave, take their kids out of school, relocate, and lose the ability to access these markets that they had access to when they were competing. So that's that's the that's the concept that we're exploring, and we're getting some really, you know, really good interest. I think
Awesome.
when I speak to people, it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I
Right.
get it.
Now, and one thing I definitely want you to elaborate on is it's not just the migration part. So when Harry Kane said it's all the stuff where my kids go to school, all that, I want them to know like Henley and Partners is not just an investment
Sure.
advisor. It's on practical things. So can you kind of speak to like all of the practical things that Henley and Partners helps with
Yeah.
their clients when it comes to housing, school, stuff like that?
Absolutely. So we are, yeah, we are very, kind of broad spectrum in terms of what we can help with. Some clients, they come to us and they're just looking for ease of travel. So, we find them the right program, but others are looking to relocate completely, and they're thinking about, okay, where can I, what properties should I purchase? Where is the market strongest? What's going to be a good investment? Um, Others are thinking, okay, I'm thinking about where I'm going to send my children to school when it comes to, either secondary or tertiary and beyond. And that's where we're really able to provide extra service. So not only do we assist in the application process for whichever program they've chosen, but we have a tax advisory wing, we have an education services advisory wing, we have our own real estate company. So we are doing intensive due diligence on real estate, understanding trends in the market, which parts of, outside of Athens, or which parts of Spain have the best potential for, for returns from a real estate standpoint, but also, which developments in another example, I'll go back to Greece, have schools that or have real estate, options that are closest to the British International School, for example. So
Right.
we're
Yeah.
able to provide those custom insights, and our education services team can work with children from as early as the family wishes to provide assessments, to provide guidance, counseling, understanding which educational kind of opportunities are going to be available to that student based on their academic profile, and then working with the client advisory team, like myself, on which programs then can be paired with the education opportunities that best fit um, that family and that student. So yeah, and these are the things that we've realized, they apply to everyone. They're not just for, successful business people. I mean, athletes, they're humans, they have families, they have children, they're thinking about where and when they're going to need to, access new markets if they're accustomed to competing internationally and moving around with their families. Yeah, I think there's a lot of value that we can add to athletes throughout their career as they prepare for the eventuality of no longer being active athletes competing on the top level.
Right. And one thing, also getting to the practicality, like when somebody calls Henley and Partners, what does the process look like? Who do they meet with? Like, what does that onboarding process look like when athletes, talents, and business people contact Henley and Partners and want to get started with advisement?
Absolutely. So we, there are so many programs that we advise on, almost 40 programs around the world. There are over 100 countries globally that offer some sort of investment migration program, but we advise on those with the best reputation, most efficient processes, the best kind of due diligence standards to make sure that the right individuals are applying for and receiving these residences or citizenships. So because we offer 40 different options, there's no, we never lead with what we think is the best. We really put a focus on understanding who the client is when they approach us. We before we recommend any specific program, we want to understand if there's a geographic area where they're considering, if there are specific investment types that they prefer, if they're doing it for the purpose of relocation or just as an option that they might need or take advantage of later down the road. We want to understand where they're coming from. At that point, we'll start to, narrow it down, present them with some, the financial layout of what a specific program might look like. And then once we onboard them as a client, we work hand in hand with putting together the entire application packet, so to speak. Understanding, our team has been doing it for long enough that whenever someone comes to us and we get an understanding of who they are, what their background is, what their employment, professional history is, know exactly what documents will be needed and what signatures go where, what needs to be legalized here and there, to set that individual up for success ultimately in their application. Providing, pairing them with the right investment, making sure that the investment that they make qualifies under the program, and when we're there, start to finish and beyond. Once someone is a Henley and Partners client, they remain. We as much or as little as they want us, there in the future. We're there. We're always, they're a client for life. So yeah, we pride ourselves in being as A to Z as possible.
That's awesome. And speaking of being in 40 plus markets, there is a new office in the United States, and you guys chose to take your talents also to Miami. I don't know.
That's correct. There's something in the water. Something in the water.
I've actually chosen to take my talents also to Miami, as we have our office and operations now in West Palm Beach. Now I think about it, because I can't take.
There you go. You can't. Yeah.
I can't talk too much. But
no, exactly.
So the decision to open the office in the United States in Miami, can we talk about that to say, like, is that because there's an increased interest in coming to the United States? And when people are coming to the United States, are they wanting to come to South Florida? I mean, here in the United States, we like to move to South Florida as well.
Right. So it's actually, I think, the EB-5 market for us is certainly and again, that's the U.S. Residence by Investment program. It is a popular program for our clients, but truthfully, I think the main reason why we've increased our footprint in the U.S. is because a growing number of Americans are looking to have some options, and I think major cities, Miami, New York, Chicago, LA. That's there are a lot of individuals who are looking at their backup plan, whether it's again retiring in Spain, Costa Rica, Panama, the Caribbean, or just having, having some options. It's all about, I think there's given political division,
Yeah.
instability, just general kind of global geopolitical turmoil. I think people are recognizing that it's not enough to just have the one citizenship or one residence. It's a necessary part of any wealth protection kind of estate planning strategy
Right.
to have access to as many markets as possible. So yeah, so um, as much as people are looking to migrate to the U.S., I think yeah,
It's what they
a
lead to.
huge part of what we're doing, and that's the thing. It's not necessarily even leaving the U.S. It's a lot of a
Just
lot of
have an
our
option.
clients. Yeah, it's having that option. And I think that's a big um, you know uh, mis kind of misconception of the investment migration space is it's not about necessarily relocating. We have so many clients here in the UAE who have long careers, they've been working and living in the UAE for decades, and they don't intend on leaving right away or for the foreseeable future, but they want to have some options. They want to be able to be mobile as much as possible. So it's something we're seeing all over the world, but yeah, the U.S. is a really fast growing market for us for sure.
And I think it's one thing to just know like the flexibility. And with the talent based immigration, and I imagine it's going to be in other places too, is that it does offer a lot of flexibility, sometimes even more flexibility than having the second permanent residence, because sometimes with the permanent residence comes compliance things you have to do as far as how much time that you have to spend in a country and stuff like that. But I know
Absolutely.
here in the United States, when it comes to the O-1 category, you have that flexibility to be able to come to the United States, not have to stay here for any amount of time, and then have that option always to switch over to a talent-based immigrant version, which in our case is the EB1A, to do the permanent residence when you want to. But when it comes to flexibility, I think I want people to understand that if you are eligible for talent-based immigration, a lot of times you can do that without the red tape that comes with actually switching over to permanent residence. If you're trying to just get your feet wet and being able to
Yeah.
go to different markets whenever you want to, also with the work authorization to make investments, but without that permanent commitment or semi-permanent commitment that comes with doing permanent residence in a lot of the most developed countries in the world. You know.
Yeah, that's a great point. And there are programs where that's the case for investment migration as well, where I've mentioned like Spain and Greece, Portugal a few times, but these programs, if you make a qualifying investment and go through the application process, et cetera, and receive your residence, if you don't want to, you don't have to spend a single day in that country, but you still
Mhm.
retain your residence permit because you hold that qualifying asset. In
Nice.
some of these countries, it gives you, having that permit, regardless of whether or not you spend a day there. If you wanted to move there tomorrow and look for work, you could, in some cases, actually, Spain being one, you could be employed in Spain. It gives you that option of later, if you do have the talent of, if you're an entrepreneur and you want to start a new business and you already have your foot in the door to then, you know, use your talents to switch away from an investment or from a real estate, based pathway and settle in that country more permanently. So yeah, I think the what we've seen is the blurring between investment migration and talent-based migration is becoming more and more pronounced. Like they're becoming in certain countries and certain programs part of the same conversation.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, we won't. I guess we've been over like 30 minutes. We won't take people too much time. I know people are trying to get to
No, of
work and go to
course.
bed and stuff like that. So I guess we'll wrap it up with talking about just there is a lot of turmoil going in the world and stuff like that. When it comes like when you're having these conversations like with people, what are like the top three reasons that people like might not even have on their brains that they should be thinking about to getting started with looking at their global migration through investment options right now in practical sense?
Yeah, it's it the things that people need to keep in mind are whether they are looking at relocating versus just having the option, because there are some programs that do require relocation. Are you looking for alternate, some people don't recognize that even the difference between citizenship and residence. Citizenship, you become a naturalized citizen where you would hold passport of that country. Certain countries, depending on where you're from, don't allow for dual citizenship. So you need to be really aware of, does your home country allow for dual citizenship, or would obtaining another citizenship mean renouncing your current one, which can have major, major implications depending on where you're coming from.
Major implications. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, huge. Those are the two biggest that we hear about or that we encounter, and then the third that is a huge consideration that doesn't always fall under Henley and Partners scope, is tax. We're not
Yeah.
tax advisors, but for anyone who comes our way, we say, if you're thinking about this, just even if there won't be major impacts on you and your family and your situation, speak to a tax advisor. Understand
Yeah.
the implications. Just so you're informed. I think that's, at the end of the day, we want our clients to feel like they are well informed, well educated, and that is what ultimately will allow them to make the right decision, and will allow us to, serve them the best, and making sure that every decision they make is in their best interest.
Gotcha. That's wonderful. And I think what I'll wrap it up with is, as an immigration attorney in the United States, I have enough to do with just knowing how immigration in the United States works. To have a resource out there like Henley and Partners that can go and give you these type of real practical questions that really matter is unique. And we're certainly glad that Henley and Partners exists to be able to give such a broad perspective on immigration like around the world. And I definitely give respect to your organization for knowing all this stuff about so many places and actually advising on creating some of these programs as well. So we look forward to continued conversation and partnership on this as we help the best people in the world get to where they want to go.
Absolutely, and thank you, Sharad, for giving me the chance to speak and connect with your network. We definitely, we're here to help however we can, and look forward to working together.
Sounds good. You guys stay safe out there, and it's not hard to find us. Innovative immigration law for talent-based, investment-based immigration to the United States. Henley and Partners, talent-based.
Yeah, we are Henley Global, henleyglobal.com. You'll find us.
That's it. All right.
Perfect.
Talk to you soon.
All right. Take it easy, Sharad. Bye.